Welcome back to school. Holy shit. So, for weeks of a year, it's actually not insignificant at all, is it? The amount of time that teachers and kids have off education, school, educating, and there's somehow the result is this just absurd increase in traffic. So, regularly, I have just been cruising straight up to this traffic light, sometimes even getting through on the green. Whereas today, it's my first day back with the school season. And aren't we glad about that? I need to get used to this a bit more because we're going to be doing a lot more of it. It's times like this you sort of wish you had a summer bike, like a thin bike for scooting around, but the big bird is fantastic. It is fantastic. I changed my number plate recently. Put the original number plate back on this bike, and I started getting ULEZ fines, and I think I've got. I mean, there's a big list of them. I'll maybe do a little spread of pictures, but it's absurd, and it kind of goes to show that the trick that I alluded to, and let's be fair, it wasn't a trick. I was just joking around. I wasn't saying that you can drive a heavily polluting vehicle on the proviso that it's a motorbike for TfL's purposes, but it does kind of go to show just how much effort they've put into making everyone's lives as fraught with fines as they can. So basically, that changing the number plate on this vehicle was enough to trigger ULEZ fines to start coming back, and I can only imagine that means that they have some sort of notification from the DVLA, or maybe some sort of regular monthly, weekly process that says, I don't know, that reconciles all the exceptions, and by exceptions I mean anything that they've manually updated on their system as being exempt, for example. I don't really want to stop here, buddy. I'm going to go here because I think that bloke's going to let us in. So, blah blah blah. Yeah, it's just dog shit. So, obviously I've just submitted the same paperwork again. What the oh right, okay. I guess that's okay. So yeah, loads of fines started coming through, and do you know what, I didn't even stress. Like, the first time I got them I was like, oh god, but when I started seeing them this time I was like, well, I know the bike's exempt, but there was one moment, I think I'd maybe had a stress day, I was like, oh fucking hell, what if ULEZ somehow argue these things, and now I've got 7, I think it's 7, maybe 8 penalty notices that are all expired, and it's gonna be a grand of fines, and I was like, no, that's bullshit. And it's just, yeah, Sadiq can't. And people look to the alternatives as if someone's going to get in power after Labour and undo ULEZ. They're not going to undo ULEZ. You think they're taking down all those cameras they've spent millions and millions on? They're not doing that. They could reduce the daily charge to something a bit more reasonable, and maybe that's the plan. You know, they bring it in at $12.50, and then they lower it to a £5 and make whoever lowers it to a £5 seem like the good guy, when actually that's absurd. So yeah, it's just a big money making scheme. We all know that. There's no illusions. Green capitalism, that's what it is. But anyway, that's not really what I wanted to moan about today. What I wanted to moan about today is actually something it's not a completely different realm of topic. I think it's still green capitalism, maybe it's not, maybe it's just crookery. But energy prices, what the fuck? So, this isn't just a belated rant at why have electric prices absolutely soared. to the heavens, or gas, or any of that bullshit, or whatever. It's not an anti-green rant, it's not a green rant, it's none of that. It's just, you're a bunch of twats, you're a bunch of cunts. Energy companies. So I use Octopus, I believe, yeah, I think we're with Octopus at home, and the energy unit rate was like, what, 40-50p, something like that, and it was capped. Over winter, I think our normal energy, I would expect that house to be 120 to 150 a month, that sort of thing, and we were pulling 350 pound bills. It's just absolutely obscene. We're going to drag, come on. Back in the day, you used to have to switch energy provider like annually, basically, to make sure you got the best deal, and it was bullshit. And then somewhere along the line, I'll let this guy go through, they said, right, you're no longer allowed to screw your customers like that. If they're not on the best deal, you need to put them on the best deal, blah blah blah, blah. And everyone thought, okay, well that's fine, now I'm good, I just pay the energy company. It's not like there's a choice of tariffs like there used to be anyway, the likes of U-Switch, or what was that other company? There's been other companies. U-Switch was not the first, where there'd be like an energy comparison website, and you'd do that from time to time and make sure you're on the best deal, and you'd go to the pub and you'd be like, oh yeah, you know, I'm paying this much less on my energy bill, blah blah blah. I thought those days were over, or so we thought. I recently, and there may be a loophole here on the basis that it's variable, I switched to the Octopus tracker. Now, I think I'd heard a couple of things about this. Every arsehole these days getting solar panels fitted to their roof, and I won't go into pros and cons about solar panels or show how much or how little I understand about them. All I know is they're very expensive to give you not a lot of something, i.e. not a lot of energy, of something that should be quite cheap, i.e. energy should be cheap. No ifs, no buts, no maybes. Energy should be cheap, and that's that. And people talk about, you know, getting a battery that they can charge from the solar, so you charge the batteries using the sun. Let's say you get 5 kilowatts of sun, you get 4 kilowatts in the battery, it degrades over time, but you use it, and that's 4 kilowatts, whoop-de-doo. You know, in the old days that would be like 30p. Not anymore. Oh, you scumsuckers, the lot of you. I always think it's easier to follow on motorbikes like this than it is to lead. So when I get people behind me, I sort of forget that actually I'm the leader and there is a bit of margin built in. Anyway, Octopus tracker. I read about this because of the variability, and there's a bloke, you might have heard of him. If you're kind of interested in what I'm doing here on the YouTube, it's quite possible you've heard of photonic induction. That absolutely based monster. And he had a video, it's like 10 years old, where he uses a couple of boat batteries, right? So these gigantic, like 6 volt or whatever they are, I don't quite remember the specifications, like hundreds of amps, only a few volts, boat batteries, and then he'd charge those off the mains, and he'd charge them off the mains at off-peak rate, so economy 7, for a fraction of the cost that you pay during the day. Kind of do that min-max thing, pay for energy during the night, use energy during the day, and you pay a little bit of a spread, and then you use that energy in the day, and then you rinse and repeat. And obviously if you run out, you just start paying in the day, and that's what you would have been paying anyway. So you're using the capacity of the batteries, and that's the idea, really. So it's not about giving yourself an emergency backup power supply, it's about just taking the edge off energy prices. However, battery cost and inverter cost and all that stuff is very expensive these days, even more expensive than the energy's gone up. So it takes years to pay back and that's assuming you're using it to its capacity, to its maximum, and it's like years to pay back. I mean, is that worth it, considering there will be other costs? That doesn't factor in installation, for one, any issues, any replacement parts. Batteries don't last forever. So yeah, anyway, I was looking into that because I love that sort of min-max stuff, and that's when I was like, okay, so what energy tariffs allow you to do that these days? So you can still get economy 7, can you? Turns out not really. You need 2 meters. I think they have versions of it where it's done by smart meters and whatnot. But yeah, smart meters have sort of undone that for whatever, you know, good smart meters do. Satisfy curiosity maybe. But then I came across this like wholesale tracker, energy tracker tariffs that you can get, where essentially you pay whatever the wholesale price is, probably plus a spread, and those prices are, you know, are fair because that's the wholesale price. It's not like energy companies can gouge you. And I was like, okay. And then I looked at some example rates, and I was like, what the fuck? The energy wholesale prices are so much lower, and it may be that actually at the start of all this shit, the wholesale prices spiked. The energy companies say they're just recouping those losses, but tell me this: why do you think energy companies made record profits over the last couple of years? I mean, it sounds a bit suspicious to me. And when you see stuff like this, it's just kind of, it's more fuel to the fire, where you're like, you untrustworthy bastards. So I'll give you some examples. My last energy bill that I got like a few days ago that triggered this whole rage was not, what was it? It wasn't inconsequential. It was like 100 quid or something like that for gas and electric. And that's after switching, I should point out, because I switched a couple of months ago and just hadn't really bothered to check what happened. And it actually had the switchover rate on the bill, so it was like this was the bill that showed the difference. And so on the flexible Octopus flexible tariff, I think it's called, which is the one you sign up to, you know, if you've got a smart meter or maybe even a regular meter, that's what you go on. There's no options, there's no like, oh, you can have this, you can have that, you can pay for coal, you can have gas, you can fund whichever kind of energy you want. No, none of that. It's all 100% green, which I assume means 100% of their investment goes on green, because it damn sure doesn't mean 100% of the energy that you consume comes from green. Electricity was 37p per unit. Is that right? Yeah, 37p. And on the new tracker rate this month, it was 17p. And I was like, what's the actual fuck? That is absolutely insane. That's like, it's a big difference, right? That's well over 50%. And then gas was a similar story. It was like, it was 15p, and now it's 7. Like it was as marked as that. And you could say, oh yeah, but it's summer, it will go up, and yeah, demand goes up in winter, but then so does supply in theory. So what, the wholesale price doesn't have that built into it? I think it probably does. And even if it goes up a little bit, like that's if you're going onto a flexible tariff or a fixed tariff, you can bet your bollocks to a barn dance that's priced into it as well. So I saw this and I was like, this is just absolute scummery tactics. Really not impressed at all. I don't really want to squeeze through there, but I will if he gives me a chance. Absolute scum tactics. So this is a public service announcement, let's say. Oh, that's the Acra diffuser, or at least a copy. To have a look at your energy bills. Go and have a look at tracker tariffs, because it might just be that's the thing that we should all be on at the moment. That might just be the case. And that's pretty much end of video.